Seo-jun was in his home office when his phone vibrated on his desk, interrupting his concentration. It was late, and the house was thickly silent, the only sound coming from the light rain tapping on the window. He glanced at his phone's display and saw an unfamiliar message flashing. At first he ignored it, thinking it might be a mistake, but something about the message caught his attention. "We need to talk. I can't wait any longer. Jin-ho." His heart raced as he read the name. Jin-ho. He hadn't heard that name in months, maybe years. An old discomfort grew inside him again, like a shadow he didn't want to revisit. He only knew Jin-ho by name, a ghost from his wife Yeon-ah's past. A name that, until now, hadn't seemed threatening. But the urgency in the message bothered him. Seo-jun slowly got up from his chair and walked to the bedroom. There was Yeon-ah lying on the bed, seemingly peaceful, with the phone resting on her chest. He couldn't look away from his phone for a moment, and something inside him pushed him to act. Without making a sound, he picked up Yeon-ah's phone and unlocked the screen. Jin-ho's message was there, untouched, still unread. Another message arrived at that moment. "Please don't ignore me. We can't run from this forever." The ground seemed to open up beneath Seo-jun's feet. He looked at Yeon-ah, who was sleeping innocently beside him, and a wave of questions flooded him. Why was Jin-ho trying to contact her? What exactly was it that they couldn't run from anymore? He felt betrayed before he even got any answers. Something was wrong, and he knew he wouldn't rest until he found out what was going on. Trying to keep control, he put the phone back in its place, but his mind was already full of assumptions and suspicions. He pushed himself away from the bed, unable to sit still. In the back of his mind, he tried to rationalize the situation. Maybe it was something unimportant. Maybe Jin-ho was just desperate for some reason, and Yeon-ah had nothing to do with it. But he couldn't shake the feeling that this was something much bigger than a coincidence. Yeon-ah stirred in bed, slowly waking up. When she opened her eyes, she found Seo-jun standing at the edge of the bed, looking at her in a way that made her feel exposed. "Seo-jun? Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice still soft from sleep. "Yeon-ah," he began, hesitating, trying to choose the right words. "Who's Jin-ho?" The name came out like a blow, causing her eyes to widen in surprise. The expression on Yeon-ah's face changed so quickly that any doubts Seo-jun might have had disappeared instantly. She knew. She knew exactly what he was talking about, and her face revealed barely concealed guilt. "Why are you asking about him?" she replied, her voice shaking, already trying to control the situation, but the panic was clear in her eyes. "I saw the messages," he said coolly, keeping his calm on the surface. "What are you hiding from me, Yeon-ah?" There was a tense silence. Yeon-ah's gaze roamed the room, avoiding looking directly at him. She sat up slowly on the bed, trying to buy time, but Seo-jun was not about to give in. He leaned closer, his jaw tense, waiting for her to speak. "Jin-ho, he's just someone I knew," she began, but her voice was far from convincing. Seo-jun cut her off. "Don't play with words, Yeon-ah. What are you hiding from me?" His patience was quickly running thin, and he knew he needed answers. She sighed deeply, running her hands over her face. It was clear there was no easy answer to give. Seo-jun stared at her, his chest tight, feeling like his life was about to be turned upside down. The air between them was thick with tension. "Seo-jun, there are things you don't know about my past," she finally admitted, her voice weak. "Things I never wanted to come to light." Those words, though vague, were enough to make Seo-jun feel the impact. Yeon-ah's past, which had always been shrouded in mystery, now seemed far more dangerous than he could have imagined. He crossed his arms, trying to prepare himself for what was to come. "I need to know everything," he said firmly. "Now." Tension grew between them as the dark past Yeon-ah had tried to bury began to surface, threatening to consume everything they had built together. Yeon-ah remained silent, her gaze lost somewhere in the distance of the room. The sound of the rain, which had once seemed soothing, was now just an unsettling backdrop to the emotional chaos that was growing between them. Seo-jun felt the tension in every muscle in his body, waiting for the words to finally come out of his wife's mouth. He needed the truth, even if it was painful. "Seo-jun," she began, her voice cracking, "I did things I'm not proud of, things I've tried to forget. But it seems the past never really goes away, does it? What things, Yona? His voice was cold, almost inhuman. He knew something was about to explode, but he needed to hear every detail. He couldn't live with doubts any longer. Yona ran her hands through her hair, visibly distraught, trying to find the right words for a moment she'd never planned to face. She took a deep breath before continuing, as if the truth were a poison that needed to be exhaled slowly. Jin-ho, he was important to me in the past. Her voice shook as she said his name, and Seo-jun felt his blood boil. We were young, and for a while we were together. It was an intense, destructive relationship, something I knew I shouldn't have continued. Seo-jun stared at her, trying to digest every word. She'd never mentioned Jin-ho before. He knew everyone had a past, but the way she spoke made it clear that this was no ordinary ex-boyfriend. There was something deeper, darker. And why is he texting you now? Why talk about not being able to run away? Seo-jun pressed, standing his ground. He wanted answers, not half explanations. Yona looked at him, her eyes full of guilt and fear. Because he wants something from me, something I should have told you a long time ago. The tension in the room felt unbearable. Seo-jun felt the weight of something monumental hanging over them, something that could change everything. His heart pounded, and he tried to brace himself for whatever came next. I didn't want you to know, Seo-jun. I thought if I let it go, we could live in peace. But Jin-ho never let it go. Seo-jun clenched his fists, struggling to keep his cool. What is it, Yona? What are you hiding from me? She looked away for a moment, taking a deep breath before blurting out the truth that Seo-jun never imagined he would hear. I had a child with Jin-ho. Seo-jun's world seemed to stop in that instant. Everything around him disappeared, and all that was left were Yona's words echoing in his head. A child, he repeated in disbelief, as if trying to process the information. Yona nodded, tears in her eyes. Yes, before I met you, before all this, I got pregnant with Jin-ho. But I was young, scared. We ended badly, and I gave the baby up for adoption. I thought I'd never have to deal with this again. But Jin-ho found out. He wants to find our child. And he thinks I have the answers. Seo-jun took a step back as if struck by an invisible force. The betrayal, the secret, the magnitude of what he'd just heard. It all hit him at once, crushing any sense of security he might have had in his marriage. Why didn't you ever tell me? He asked, his voice hoarse with emotion. We've been married for years, Yona. Years. And you never thought you should tell me you have a child? Yona sobbed, struggling to compose herself. I was afraid, Seo-jun. Afraid that you'd hate me. Afraid that it would ruin everything. I never wanted you to know because I'm not the same person I was back then. Seo-jun ran a hand through his hair, trying to make sense of it all. He felt betrayed, confused, and anger bubbled beneath the surface. Jin-ho, this man he'd never met, was now tied to his life, and everything he thought he knew about his wife seemed like a lie. Do you think it's just going to go away now? That Jin-ho is going to disappear? Seo-jun asked, trying to remain calm. Yona shook her head, unable to look at him. No. He won't give up. He wants to find our son, and right now, I don't know what to do. Seo-jun was silent for a moment, his body rigid and his mind racing. He knew there was no going back. Yona's secret had been exposed, and now they were trapped in a new kind of reality. But he also knew that Jin-ho was a threat he had to face. Somehow they would have to deal with it, together or apart. This changes everything, Yona, he said, his voice deep. But I know one thing. I will not let this man destroy our lives. That night, Seo-jun couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, Jin-ho's name echoed in his head like a relentless drumbeat. He tossed and turned, trying to understand how the life he knew had changed so abruptly. Beside him, Yona lay still, her heavy breathing betraying that she too could not escape the weight of the situation. In the silence of the early morning, Seo-jun got up slowly, walking from the bedroom to the living room. He needed space to think, away from his wife and the avalanche of emotions she had unleashed. He walked to the kitchen and poured himself a glass of water, his hands shaking slightly. His mind raced through all the possibilities, all the actions he could take, but none of them seemed to bring him peace. That was when he heard a sound. A short vibration coming from Yona's cell phone, which she had left on the living room table before going to bed. A mix of curiosity and distrust took hold of him. It wasn't like him to go through his wife's phone, but after what he had discovered, he felt entitled to know more. He needed to understand the true extent of the situation they were involved in. He picked up his cell phone, and the screen lit up with a new message. It was from an unknown number, but the content was clear. "I'm waiting for your answer. You know what will happen if you don't cooperate. Jin-ho." Seo-jun felt a knot in his stomach. The threat was there, direct, insinuating that Jin-ho had control over something deeper. It was obvious that this man would not go away easily. He was determined to drag Yona, and now Seo-jun into the center of his dark scheme. But what did he really want? Was he just trying to find his lost son? Or was there more to this relentless pursuit? Seo-jun decided he had to face the problem head-on. He unlocked Yona's phone and without hesitation opened the thread of messages between her and Jin-ho. What he read made his heart race. The messages went far beyond a simple search for answers about their son. Jin-ho had started out with subtle demands, but his words soon turned into veiled threats. He mentioned past encounters, intimate details that made it clear that the bond between them was stronger than Yona had admitted. The last messages, however, were the worst. Jin-ho was hinting that he had something that could destroy their lives completely. "You think you can ignore me, Yona? I know your secrets. I know what you did after we broke up. What if Seo-jun found out?" Seo-jun felt the weight of betrayal again. There was more than just a hidden child. Yona's past with Jin-ho was a ticking time bomb, and with every passing minute, it was getting closer to exploding into his life. Taking a deep breath, he heard a sound behind him. Yona stood in the doorway of the room, watching him with wide eyes. She saw the phone in his hands and the look on his face. "Seo-jun, what are you doing?" Her voice was a whisper, filled with fear. He held up his phone, showing the message from Jin-ho. "Why didn't you tell me everything, Yona? I thought we were past this, but you're still hiding things from me. What else is there that I don't know?" She swallowed hard, her expression showing desperation. "I was trying to protect you. I didn't want you to see how ugly this could get." "But don't you see, Yona? With every little thing you hide, the situation gets worse. This man, he's playing games with us. And if you don't tell me everything right now, we won't have a chance to deal with it." Yona walked slowly toward him, her eyes brimming with tears. I tried. I swear. But I'm scared, Seo-jun. Jin-ho is dangerous. He doesn't just want our child. He wants to destroy me, and he knows he can do that by hurting you too." Seo-jun took a deep breath, trying to calm the whirlwind of emotions he felt. "So tell me, Yona. Tell me what he has against you. What does he know?" She hesitated for a moment before finally giving in to the weight of the truth. "Jin-ho, he found out something about me. Something I did years ago after we broke up. A debt I never repaid, a bad choice I made. And he's using it against me. If he exposes this, our life will fall apart." Seo-jun felt the weight of her words, trying to process what that meant. But before he could respond, his phone vibrated again. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m. At the cafe where it all started. You'll be there or I'll tell you everything." Seo-jun looked at Yona, his heart pounding faster than ever. They had little time, and the future of their marriage, and maybe even their lives, depended on what they did next. The next morning, Seo-jun woke to the sound of his alarm clock. The clock read 7:30 a.m., but he had already been awake since the early hours. The night had been a torment. Between fragments of sleep interrupted by dark thoughts, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything he had, everything he and Yona had built, was about to crumble. On the other side of the bed, Yona lay awake but silent, staring at the ceiling with fixed eyes as if lost in her own demons. When he got up, she followed him with her eyes, but didn't say a word. They both knew that today would be decisive. After a silent breakfast, Seo-jun began to get ready for the meeting. Jin-ho's message was still fresh in her mind. 10 a.m. at the cafe where it all began. The phrase was loaded with symbolism. Yona had once mentioned that she and Jin-ho used to frequent a small cafe in the city center, where they had their first encounters and conversations that shaped their relationship. It was clear that Jin-ho was playing with her memories, choosing a place full of memories to manipulate her even further. Yona, for her part, seemed more fragile than ever. She knew she had to go to the meeting, but she feared what Jin-ho might do, not only to her but to Seo-jun as well. When Seo-jun finished getting ready, he approached her. "I'm going with you, Yona. I won't let you face this alone." She shook her head, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "No, Seo-jun. If you go, he might get even angrier. Jin-ho wants to control me, and that would make him angrier. Do you think I'm going to leave you alone with him? Not after everything he's done. Let's go together and face this as a team. We both know he can't break us, Yona, not if we're together." She hesitated but finally nodded. "Okay, but please stay calm. Don't provoke Jin-ho. He can be unpredictable." The couple left the apartment for the cafe. The walk was shrouded in silence, the tension growing with every mile. When they arrived, the clock read 9:45. There were few customers in the place, and the atmosphere was too serene for what was about to happen. They chose a table near the window, where they could look out onto the busy street. Time seemed to pass slowly, and every second that approached 10 a.m. felt like a knife sticking deeper into Seo-jun's chest. At 9:58 a.m., the door to the cafe opened. Jin-ho walked in, with the same dark confidence that Seo-jun had expected. Dressed casually, he looked like an ordinary man, but his cold, calculating eyes revealed the true monster behind the facade. He spotted the couple and walked over to their table, a wry smile playing on his lips. "Good morning, Yona," Seo-jun. His voice was almost friendly, but the venom underneath was unmistakable. Seo-jun stood his ground, controlling the urge to confront him immediately. He knew that any rash move could get Jin-ho exactly what he wanted. Yona could barely meet Jin-ho's eyes, her eyes darting away as she fidgeted nervously with the cup of coffee in front of her. "What do you want, Jin-ho?" she asked, her voice cracking slightly. Jin-ho sat at the table calmly, watching the couple for a long moment before answering. "I just want what belongs to me, Yona, and we both know what that is," Seo-jun interjected, unable to contain himself. "You can't just show up years later and demand something you yourself gave up. This isn't about what you want, Jin-ho. It's about what's right for everyone." Jin-ho turned to Seo-jun, the smile fading from his face. "Right? Do you really think you know what's right here, Seo-jun? You're just in the middle of something you don't understand. It's not about you." "Then explain it to me," Seo-jun snapped. "Make me understand why you think you have the right to ruin our lives now after all this time." Jin-ho leaned forward, his eyes fixed on Seo-jun. "I don't need to explain anything to you. Yona and I have a history that you'll never understand. But what you need to know is that if she doesn't do what I want, it's going to end very badly for all of us." Yona, who had remained silent until then, finally raised her head, her eyes filled with anger and pain. "Enough, Jin-ho. I won't let you control me anymore. Whatever you have against me, you can bring it up, do whatever you want, but I won't live in this fear anymore." Jin-ho watched her for a moment, as if gauging her reaction, before giving her a cruel smile. "Do you think you have a choice, Yona? Do you think you can just walk away from this?" The atmosphere at the table was tense, like a rope about to snap. Seo-jun looked at his wife, admiring the courage she was showing, but at the same time fearful of what would come next. Jin-ho slowly stood up, placing a small sheet of paper on the table. "See you soon. Don't forget, the clock is ticking." With that, he left the cafe, leaving Seo-jun and Yona alone with a mixture of relief and terror in the air. Seo-jun took the piece of paper and read the short, direct message. "You know where to find me. Tomorrow night." Without him, the atmosphere in the cafe seemed to crush them. Seo-jun held the note tightly in his hand, while Yona's body trembled slightly. The silence between them spoke more than any words could express. Seo-jun stared at the piece of paper in his hand, feeling a wave of anger wash over him. Jin-ho had set a clear trap, and Yona was caught in the middle of it. He knew they couldn't just ignore it. but the idea of letting Yeon-ah go to the meeting alone the next day seemed unthinkable. Jin-ho was toying with them, manipulating every situation to make them feel helpless. And as much as Seo-jun wanted to protect his wife, he knew they needed a smart solution, not an impulsive one. "We can't let him control us like this." Seo-jun finally broke the silence, his voice hard but full of concern. Yeon-ah, still staring into the distance in front of her, replied quietly, "But what can I do, Seo-jun? He knows things about my past, things that could ruin everything. If he exposes this, we'll both lose everything." Seo-jun approached her, taking her hand in his. "We're in this together, Yeon-ah. I won't let him destroy our lives. And whatever he knows, we can deal with it together." She finally looked up, meeting Seo-jun's eyes. The desperation she felt was visible, but behind it was a gleam of determination. "You don't understand. Jin-ho is dangerous. He always has been. He'll stop at nothing to get what he wants. So we need to think like him. Let's not play his game, Yeon-ah. Let's turn this around on him." Yeon-ah took a deep breath, trying to calm the turmoil inside her. She knew Seo-jun was right, but Jin-ho's presence in her life was a ghost that had haunted her for a long time. Reliving that past was like reopening wounds that had never fully healed. After a long moment of silence, she sighed. "He wants to see me alone tomorrow night. It's obvious he has something in mind. Blackmail, or worse. We can't trust him." "You're not going alone," Seo-jun replied without hesitation. "We'll find a way to solve this without falling prey to his manipulations." That night, back at the apartment, Seo-jun and Yeon-ah sat on the couch trying to come up with a plan. The tension between them had eased slightly, but it still hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Seo-jun knew they needed a strategy, something that would not only protect Yeon-ah, but also put them one step ahead of Jin-ho. "We need proof," Seo-jun said, brainstorming. "If we can get something on tape, something that shows what he really wants, we can use it against him." Yeon-ah looked at him hesitantly. "Do you think he'll expose himself like that? Jin-ho is smart, Seo-jun. He always thinks 3 steps ahead." "Maybe, but he's also overconfident. He thinks he has control over you, over us. We can use that to our advantage." The idea of confronting Jin-ho so directly made Yeon-ah even more uneasy. She knew what he was capable of, and what Seo-jun was proposing was risky. But what else could they do? Running away forever wasn't an option, and the fear that Jin-ho would continue to control their lives was an unbearable weight. "I can hide a tape recorder," Yeon-ah suggested reluctantly. "He'll search me, but maybe I can disguise it somehow." "Or we can ask someone for help," Seo-jun added. "Someone who can be nearby, ready to intervene if things get out of hand." Yeon-ah shook her head. "No, that would make him more aggressive. He's unpredictable when he feels threatened." Seo-jun frowned. "And do you think going alone and without protection will make him back down? We need to find a way to make it clear that he can't manipulate us anymore." The couple sat in silence for a while, each considering the limited options before them. Finally, Yeon-ah got up from the couch and looked at Seo-jun with a firm expression. "I will. Tomorrow night I'll find him, but you're right. We need something that can protect us. I'll hide the recorder and try to get him to talk about what he wants. That's the only way we'll have a chance." Seo-jun stood up, approaching her. "I don't like this, Yeon-ah, but if it's the only way, I'll be there. I won't leave you alone." She nodded, though fear was still present in her eyes. "I know. I just hope that when this is all over, we can still move forward." With the plan in place, the couple knew that the next night's encounter would be a turning point. Whatever it was, the day after tomorrow, nothing would be the same again. The next night came faster than Yeon-ah expected. The weight of the decision seemed to suffocate her with each passing minute, but at the same time, there was a firmness inside her that had not existed before. She knew that what was to come could change everything forever. However, this confrontation with Jin-ho was inevitable. She was tired of living at the mercy of threats and shadows from the past. Seo-jun tried to remain calm as he walked her to the meeting place, but the tension in his shoulders was evident. He parked the car a safe distance away and looked at Yeon-ah with concern. "Are you sure you want to go alone?" His voice was low, but full of tension. Yeon-ah took a deep breath and adjusted the small recording hidden inside her coat. "We have to do this. I need to confront Jinho, and this might be our only chance to find out what he really wants." Seo-jun watched her for a few seconds before nodding reluctantly. "I'll be close. If you need anything, just give me a signal." Yona gave a slight smile, but the fear in her eyes was undeniable. She got out of the car, closing the door behind her, and began walking down the street towards the cafe where Jinho had arranged to meet. Each step seemed heavier than the last. When she reached the place, she saw Jinho already sitting at a secluded table in the back of the establishment. He was dressed casually, but his gaze was sharp and controlling. When he saw her enter, a satisfied smile crossed his face. It was as if he had been waiting anxiously for this moment. Yona approached, feeling her heart race. She sat in the chair across from him, trying to maintain her composure. "I'm here. What do you want, Jinho?" He leaned forward, his eyes never leaving hers. "Always straight to the point, aren't you? I knew you'd come, Yona. After all, there's not much of a choice when someone knows your secrets." She kept her face impassive, even as dread washed over her. "So, is that what this is about? Blackmail? You think you can control my life forever?" Jinho let out a low, cold laugh. "It's not blackmail if it's true. I know parts of you that Seo-jun will never know, and I know you don't want him to know." Yeona's stomach turned. His words were calculated, precise, hitting exactly where he knew they would hurt, but she couldn't give in, not now. "You don't have that power over me, Jinho. Whatever you think you do, we can handle it." Jinho leaned forward even further, his voice low, almost a whisper. "Do you really think Seo-jun will stay with you after he finds out what we did, what you did?" The silence between them was charged. Jinho's insinuation left Yona speechless for a moment. He was playing with the past, with secrets she thought were buried. But she quickly composed herself. "I'm tired of you, Jinho. I'm not the person you think you can manipulate anymore." He smiled, a slow, predatory smile. "We'll see about that." The cafe remained quiet around them, time seeming to slow down as Jinho watched Yeon-ah's every reaction. She realized she needed more than just teasing. She needed him to talk, to incriminate himself. She took a deep breath, letting the anger in her voice show. "What do you really want, Jinho? Why are you coming back now? After all these years, why don't you just disappear?" He studied her for a few seconds before answering. "What do I want? That's simple, Yona. I want what's always been mine." Those words hit her hard. "What's always been yours? You're crazy. That ended a long time ago." Jinho laughed again, a cold sound. "Do you think it's over? Do you think you can just forget what we did together? No, Yona. You and I have a history, something no one can erase." She felt panic rising, but she kept it together. She needed to get him to talk more, needed the proof that Seo-jun and she had planned. "You're bluffing. You have nothing against me. This is just another attempt to scare me." His eyes narrowed, and for a moment his smile disappeared. "I'm not bluffing, Yona. I have everything. And if you don't cooperate, everyone will know." Her heart raced. Her palms began to sweat, but she kept her gaze steady on him. "And what do you want in return, Jinho? What do I have to do to make you disappear for good?" Jinho leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms in satisfaction. "Ah, finally. It's simple, really. I want you back. Nothing more. You. With me. Like before." His words made the air around Yeon-ah freeze. She felt nausea rising, fear taking over. Jinho wasn't just bluffing. He was prepared to destroy everything, and he wanted much more than money or power. He wanted to ruin her life in an even more personal way. Yeon-ah was silent for a moment, processing Jinho's words. He wanted something she could never give him back. Her heart was beating fast and the feeling of suffocation was growing, but she knew she couldn't show weakness, not in front of him. At the same time, her mind was racing for a solution. How could she get out of this situation without everything falling apart? "You're crazy if you think that's going to happen, Jinho." Her voice was firm, but her shaking hands under the table told another story. He watched her, still smiling, as if he were waiting for that answer. I knew you'd say that, but Yona, think about it. You don't have many options. She took a deep breath, trying to buy time. She was here to collect evidence, to make Jin-ho admit his intentions, but the more the conversation went on, the clearer it became that he had planned everything meticulously. One mistake, and he could destroy her life and her relationship with Seo-jun. You want me to just come back into your life after everything that happened? Do you think you can control me like that? That's insane. She needed to stay in control of the situation, and at the same time get him to say something that would incriminate him. Jin-ho chuckled softly. You know me well, Yona. I never do anything without being sure that I'll get what I want. And now, I want you back. With me. The silence that followed was heavy. Yona felt a chill run down her spine at his words. It was as if all the effort she had put into rebuilding her life was about to be destroyed by this man. He was standing there offering her an impossible choice. Do you really think you can show up now after all these years and demand this of me? His voice was a mix of disbelief and anger. Jin-ho leaned forward, his eyes fixed on hers. It's not a demand, Yona, it's an offer. You can continue to live this comfortable life with Seo-jun, or you can let it all fall apart. The choice is yours. She felt the pressure building. The threat was clear. He wanted to use her, to control her, as he had done in the past. Yona knew she was walking through a minefield, and any misstep could ruin everything she had built. I'm not the same person you knew, Jin-ho. You can't manipulate me like you used to. She held his gaze steady, trying to control her rising panic. He gave her a dark smile, leaning back in his chair, as if he were savoring every second of this encounter. It's funny you should say that, because deep down we both know that some things never change. Yona swallowed hard. She needed to come out of this with something concrete, a confession, anything that could be used against him. What do you really want, Jin-ho? Just tell me. We don't have time for games. Jin-ho was silent for a moment, assessing her, as if deciding how far he could go. Then, finally, he answered, his voice low but full of intent. I want you to end things with Seo-jun and come back to me. Without that, you know what will happen. His words hung in the air, and Yona felt the ground crumbling beneath her feet. She had to do something, but her options seemed increasingly limited. Jin-ho had set up a perfect trap, and now she was trapped. You can't expect me to just throw my life away because of a threat. His voice was quiet, but there was a hint of desperation in it. Oh, but you will, because I know you value what you have with Seo-jun too much to risk losing it all. And frankly, you have no choice. Jin-ho stood, straightening his coat as if the conversation had come to an end. You have 48 hours to give me an answer, Yona. Think carefully about what you're going to do. He looked at her one last time, that cynical smile still on his face before leaving the cafe. Yona remained seated, thoughts swirling through her mind like a storm. She knew she was in trouble, and that time was running out. Now, more than ever, she needed to act fast. The question was, how? The door to the cafe closed with a soft thud, but to Yona it sounded like a final blow. She sat there staring into her cup of tea that had gone cold, unable to fully process what had just happened. Jin-ho had been clear, blunt, and now she was caught between two worlds. The present, where her life with Seo-jun was everything she had ever wanted, and the past, which was threatening to drag everything into the abyss. She ran her hands over her face, trying to find clarity. How had she gotten here? How had she let Jin-ho take control so easily? The thought of telling Seo-jun everything crossed her mind. He deserved to know. But what if it meant losing everything? Jin-ho knew secrets about her that could destroy them both, and she knew he was willing to use anything to get what he wanted. Yona hesitantly picked up her phone. Should she call someone? Ask for help? Her mind raced through options, but they all seemed to lead to a dead end. So before she could think better of it, she dialed the number of her closest friend, Yoonji. Yona? Yoonji's voice sounded cheerful on the other end of the line. What a surprise, you rarely call. Yona hesitated for a moment. How could she explain the chaos she found herself in? But she needed to talk to someone. Yoonji, do you have a moment? I need to talk to you. On the other end, her friend caught the serious tone in her voice. Sure, Yona. Is everything okay? You seem tense. Can we meet? I need to tell you something. It's serious. Her voice almost broke, but she held it together, keeping her calm. Within minutes, Yona and Yoonji were sitting together in a small restaurant in downtown Seoul. The atmosphere was cozy, but the tension on Yona's face was evident. Yoonji, always so perceptive, knew something serious was going on. Okay, what's going on? Yoonji was blunt, her gaze worried. You've never called me that all of a sudden. Yona looked at her friend, searching for the right words. It's complicated. I don't even know where to begin. Start from the beginning, Yoonji replied calmly, reaching her hand across the table to support Yona. I'm here. Whatever it is, you know you can count on me. Yona sighed, trying to gather her thoughts. Then she began to tell the story, from the moment Jin-ho reappears in her life to the ultimatum he'd just given her. She explained everything, from their past relationship to the secrets he knew about her, to the fear she felt now. Yoonji stayed silent, listening intently to every detail. When Yona finished, her friend seemed to be processing everything. So he's basically blackmailing you to go back to him. That's ridiculous, Yona. You can't give in to that. I know, but he's threatening to expose secrets that they could destroy my life with Seo-jun. Yona's voice was filled with anguish. I don't know what to do. If I tell Seo-jun the truth, I risk losing him anyway. Yoonji frowned, clearly worried. You need to get rid of this guy, Yona, somehow. You can't let him control your life again. Yona nodded, but Yoonji's words offered no practical solution. Jin-ho wasn't the kind of man who gave up easily. He was manipulative, calculating, and now he had all the resources to make her life hell if he wanted to. I can't just ignore this, Yoonji. If he reveals what he knows, Seo-jun will never forgive me. She looked at her friend, her eyes filled with despair. What do I do? Yoonji was silent for a moment, thinking. You need professional help. Someone who knows how to deal with a psychopath like Jin-ho. Some kind of lawyer or even a private detective. If he's blackmailing you, that's a crime. And you need someone on your side who understands the law and can protect you. Yona had never considered that possibility. She'd always thought dealing with Jin-ho was something she'd have to handle herself. But maybe Yoonji was right. Maybe it was time to stop fighting alone. I know someone, Yoonji continued. A lawyer who's really good at dealing with cases like yours. He's handled blackmail situations before. I can give you his contact. Yona nodded slowly, the idea sinking in. Maybe there was a way out after all. Maybe she could protect her relationship with Seo-jun and take Jin-ho down at the same time. But still, there was something nagging at her. She knew Jin-ho wouldn't give up without a fight, and whatever came next, it would be a dangerous battle. Okay, she said finally. Give me his contact. I'll fight this. The next morning arrived with a grey sky reflecting Yona's state of mind. She woke up with a clouded mind, her thoughts still swirling around the conversation she had with Yoonji. The idea of seeking professional help brought her a slight relief, but at the same time, the weight of the situation still lingered, heavy as a stone on her chest. After taking a shower and getting ready, Yona prepared to meet the lawyer. The meeting was to be held in a modern office located in an elegant building in the heart of the city. The idea of discussing her life with a stranger was uncomfortable, but she knew she had to do it. It was a crucial step towards regaining control over her life. Upon arriving, Yeon-ah was greeted by a friendly receptionist who directed her to a minimalist waiting room. As she waited, her heart raced. What if the lawyer couldn't help her? What if she was making a huge mistake by exposing her personal life? But in a moment of clarity, she realized she had no choice. It was time to act. The lawyer entered the room, a middle-aged man with grey hair and a shrewd gaze. He introduced himself as Ji-hoon, and as soon as he sat down across from her, he began asking her questions about the situation. I understand that you're going through a difficult time, Ji-hoon said, leaning forward. Tell me everything you can about Jin-ho. Yona hesitated, but then began to speak. Each word felt like a release. She described her relationship with Jin-ho, the happy memories that soon turned into nightmares, and the emotional blackmail he was trying to exert on her. Watching him write it all down, she felt a mixture of fear and relief. Here was someone who, at least in theory, could help her out of this situation. "He mentioned that he knows secrets about me," Yona said, her voice shaking. "Things that could hurt my relationship with Seo-jun. That scares me. What can I do?" Ji-hoon listened intently and after a moment of thought answered, "The first thing we need to do is document everything. If he's really blackmailing you, it could be considered a crime. We need to gather evidence, like text messages, emails, or any other form of communication that could be used against him." Yona nodded, her heart beating faster. "He's sent me messages, but I don't know if they're enough. What if I just confront him?" "Confronting him can be dangerous. He's manipulative and could use any information against you. It's best to proceed with caution," Ji-hoon advised, his voice firm. "Let's work on this together. It's crucial that you stay calm and don't act impulsively." She took a deep breath, realizing he was right. Impulsiveness would only lead to more trouble. What she needed was a strategy. "What if he tries to do something before we can act?" she asked, distressed. "We can't let that happen," Ji-hoon replied, a determined glint in his eyes. "I'll help you come up with a plan. If necessary, we can file a restraining order against him. We'll protect you at all costs." Yeon-ah felt a mix of gratitude and nervousness. Ji-hoon's presence made her feel more confident, but the reality of what she was facing still terrified her. "Thank you for listening to me, Ji-hoon. I feel like I'm in good hands," she said, trying to smile. He smiled back, but his expression quickly turned serious again. "We need to act quickly. In the meantime, be sure to beef up your security, and be careful when communicating with Seo-jun about this. Don't share unnecessary details. What Jin-ho knows could be used against you, and we need to be strategic." The conversation continued, with Ji-hoon guiding Yona on how to collect evidence and protect herself. As the meeting progressed, she felt more and more hopeful. Though the tension remained in her chest, a battle was about to begin, and she needed to be ready. At the end of the meeting, Yona left the office with a mixed feeling of determination and fear. The sun was beginning to peek through the clouds, illuminating her path as she made her way back home. Each step was a new resolution. She would not allow Jin-ho to control her life. It was time to take charge and fight for what was hers. As soon as she stepped inside, the look in Seo-jun's eyes made her hesitate. He was sitting on the couch, a book in his hands, but the concern in his eyes was unmistakable. Yona felt the weight of the decision she was about to make. Should she come clean? "Yona, are you okay? You seem distant," Seo-jun commented, closing the book and turning to her. "Yeah, I'm fine. I've just had a busy day," she replied, trying to remain calm, but the tension was palpable. And so, with a lump in her throat, Yona realized that the next leg of her journey was about to begin, one that could change not only her fate, but Seo-jun's as well. What would be riskier, hiding the truth or facing the consequences of revealing it? Yona sat on the couch next to Seo-jun, her heart pounding. The room was charged, and she knew she had to be honest. Even if it meant opening wounds she was still trying to heal. His voice, soft and concerned, brought a new wave of insecurity. "I can tell you're dealing with something serious. If you need to talk, I'm here," he said, his hand gently touching hers, a gesture that always made her feel safer. "Seo-jun, I don't know how to tell you this," Yona began, fighting the urge to pull away. Jin-ho's image haunted her mind, and she wondered if it was fair to involve Seo-jun in this. But she knew she had to be honest, not just with him, but with herself. "I can't hide it anymore. What's happening is complicated. It's about Jin-ho," she finally said, the words spilling out like a heavy burden. Seo-jun's eyes narrowed. "Jin-ho? What did he do? You don't need to worry. I'll protect you," he stated, the determination in his voice a balm for the wounds Yona carried. She took a deep breath, the memories of her conversation with Ji-hoon still fresh in her mind. "He's blackmailing me. He knows things about me that could harm our relationship. He's trying to manipulate me to get what he wants." Seo-jun's expression changed. Surprise gave way to concern, and his hand gripped hers tightly. "This is serious, Yona. What does he want?" He's not just a friend, Seo-jun. We had a relationship that ended badly, and now he's trying to get back at us, using the past as a weapon, she explained, each word bringing her closer to the truth. Seo-jun leaned forward, his eyes locking with hers. You're not alone in this. We'll deal with this together. What does he know? Yona hesitated, remembering Ji-hoon's words about being cautious. I don't know all the details, but he mentions things that could cause a lot of harm. I don't want you to get involved. I don't want to put you in danger. Seo-jun frowned. You're not putting me in danger. He's threatening our happiness. We need to find out what he knows and how we can deal with it. She felt a wave of relief and dread. His willingness to confront her instead of walking away touched her deeply, but at the same time a growing worry set in. What if he tries something else? What do we do if he becomes aggressive? Seo-jun kept his gaze fixed. I won't let that happen. We'll go to the lawyer tomorrow and we'll document everything. If he crosses the line, we'll take the necessary action. Yona nodded, feeling stronger beside him, but Jin-ho's shadow still loomed over them. I just want this to end. I'm tired of living in fear. Then let's end it. You deserve to be free, Yona. We'll face this together, one day at a time, Seo-jun promised, the conviction in his voice warming her heart. Yet the reality of what they were about to face still terrified her. What would come next after this revelation? They were about to enter a battle that would require much more than courage. It would require trust, love, and most of all, resilience. As they spoke, Yona's phone vibrated on the table, breaking the tense atmosphere. With a wary expression, she picked up the phone. It was a message from Jin-ho. I know you're with someone right now. I hope he can protect you like I did. Don't forget what we have. She froze, the fear returning full force. Seo-jun, he's threatening me. He knows I'm with you, she said, her voice shaking. Seo-jun glanced at the screen, and her expression hardened. We won't let this control us. Ignoring him isn't an option. You've already said you're willing to face this. We'll show him that we're not afraid. Yona felt a mixture of fear and courage. They were on the right path, but the challenge ahead would be immense. Seo-jun's determination illuminated some of the darkness surrounding her. If they were going to face this, they would do it together, as a team. We'll go to the lawyer tomorrow, she said, determined. I'll follow your plan, and together we'll face whatever comes. Exactly. We're in this together, don't forget, Seo-jun replied, encouraging her with a smile. With that, Yona felt a new determination rise within her. The battle would not be easy, but she was not alone. It was time to fight for her life, her happiness, and her love. Jin-ho would no longer control her destiny. From now on, Yeon-ah would be the architect of her own story. The sun rose over the horizon, illuminating the city with a soft glow, but Yeon-ah felt her heart heavy with the anticipation of what was to come. The meeting with the lawyer was scheduled for 10 o'clock in the morning, and anxiety mixed with determination. Beside her, Seo-jun looked calm, but Yeon-ah could see the nervousness in his eyes. Are you ready? She asked, trying to reassure him as they left the apartment. He nodded, and they walked toward the car, each step echoing the importance of the moment. As soon as they reached the lawyer's office, Yeon-ah felt the tension rise. The room was austere, with white walls and dark furniture, reflecting the seriousness of the situation. They sat in the waiting room, and Seo-jun held her hand, his touch firm and comforting. I'm here, and you're not alone, he said, looking into her eyes. The warmth of his words helped to calm her nervousness a little. When the lawyer, a middle-aged man named Mr. Kim, entered, Yeon-ah stood up. He looked experienced and confident, but that didn't put her completely at ease. Good morning, Yeon-ah, Seo-jun. Let's get started, shall we? He said, gesturing for them to sit down. Once they were settled, Mr. Kim opened a notepad and began to jot down notes. So please tell me what's going on. Yeon-ah took a deep breath and began explaining the situation, from her relationship with Jin-ho to the threats he was making. He knows things about me that he can use to hurt me. I'm worried about what might happen, she said, her voice shaking slightly. The lawyer listened intently, taking notes as she spoke. When she finished, he looked at her seriously. I understand. This is a complicated case, but it's not impossible. First, we need to gather all the evidence you have about these threats. I don't have much. He didn't send me direct messages, but he knows what happened between us, Yona replied, insecurity growing inside her. We need to document everything you remember. If he contacts me again, keep all the messages, even the indirect ones. It could help us build a case, Mr. Kim said, his tone firm. Seo-jun, listening intently, asked, what if he tries to get close to her? What can we do to protect her? The first step is to file a complaint. Once we have a legal basis, we can file a restraining order if he doesn't stop threatening you, the lawyer replied. Yona nodded, feeling a little more hopeful. What if he doesn't comply with the restraining order? In that case, you should always be vigilant and report any violations immediately. The important thing is not to let him manipulate you or create an environment of fear, the lawyer clarified, his gaze serious. You can count on us, Yona. We'll be with you every step of the way, Seo-jun assured her, holding her hand tightly. Yes, I want you to help me, Mr. Kim. I'm willing to fight this, Yona said, determination building within her. Good. The first step is to document everything and put together a timeline of events. I want you to write down every interaction you had with Jin-ho and how he behaved. That will give us a solid foundation, the lawyer instructed. They spent the next few hours discussing strategy and gathering information as the tension began to dissipate, giving way to a new sense of hope. Finally, after the meeting, Yona walked out of the office feeling a little lighter. The weight she had been carrying felt more manageable now, and the determination to face what lay ahead solidified in her heart. Thank you for being here, Seo-jun. I couldn't do this without you, she said, looking into his eyes. You're stronger than you think, Yona, and together we'll get through this. We can't let Jin-ho destroy what we have, Seo-jun replied, his smile bringing a comforting warmth. Let's be smart and careful. I don't want him to win, she said, courage filling her. However, as they walked, a sense of unease began to creep in again. What would Jin-ho do next? She knew the real test was just beginning, and she would need to be strong and smart to weather the coming storms. Yona and Seo-jun stopped at a cafe to drink some coffee and calm down, but the tension between them was palpable. The fear of what was to come hadn't gone away, and she knew the battle was far from over. The only certainty was that they were in this together, and that hope was reborn with each step they took. Come on, let's focus on what's ahead of us. One day at a time, Seo-jun suggested, breaking the silence. We're going to win this. Yona nodded, determined. The next step was clear, and despite the uncertainty, she felt stronger than ever. With Seo-jun by her side, she was ready to face any challenge that came her way. And so, their journey continued. Yeonsa and Seo-jun faced not only the challenges of a complicated relationship, but also the threats that loomed from their past. Their fight had only just begun, and every decision they made could be crucial to their future. How will they deal with Jin-ho's manipulative tactics? What else is coming in this emotional battle? If you're as involved as we are, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your participation is essential so that we can continue to bring you stories that move and inspire. Leave a like, share this video with friends and family who could benefit from this narrative, and don't forget to tell us your opinion in the comments. We're curious to know where you're coming from and how this story touched you. Stay tuned. A link to our next video will appear on the screen, which promises to be even more impactful and revealing. Don't miss this opportunity to delve even deeper into Yeon-ah and Seo-jun's journey. Click through and find out how their story unfolds.